So I'm a little late to this, but I just finished watching the first two seasons of Fallout, which at the time of recording is all that exists so far, and I've got so many thoughts that I want to talk about. Firstly, just to give you a brief bit of context as to my history with the Fallout franchise, I've always very much been an outsider. I've kind of enjoyed it from the wings, I suppose. I remember being in school and my friends talking about Fallout 3 and watching them play it and stuff. But me personally, I don't tend to love post-apocalyptic wastelands as a setting. I usually find it too bleak and, there's just other things which interest me more. Like, it's partially that it's too bleak, and it's also partially just subjectivity of, like, I'm not a huge fan of, for instance, like, contemporary military stuff as a theme or a setting. Just, like, on a fundamental level, doesn't appeal to me. But the more I learn about Fallout, the more I realize it's not quite like all the other post-apocalyptic wastelands out there in fiction. It's got its own unique quirks, and it's got some really compelling parts to the lore as well. So over the years, I have tried Fallout games a number of times. I've never fully gotten into one to this day. I've tried some Fallout 3, I've tried some Fallout 4, I've most recently been playing some Fallout 76, and that's partially because of this show, which I have been watching. And I didn't watch season 1 when it came out, for all the reasons I just mentioned, but at the end of the day, I'm a huge Skyrim fan. I quite enjoy Starfield. I love the games that Bethesda Game Studios makes, and I love the worlds that they build and how they explore them, and they had a hand in making this show. I believe they wrote it, right? They, designed props for it and stuff like that, and kind of helped make it a cohesive thing, and also this is... as opposed to a lot of video game adaptations within other media, this is canon. This is the next chapter in the Fallout story. It's just a show instead of a game, and I find that really cool. So my interest in the Fallout world has been a very slow burn, but it's finally, I feel like the show has come at just the perfect time. It's finally hit full burn, I feel like, and I've been really tempted to re-download Fallout 4 and just get stuck into that recently as well, but I'm already playing 76, so I probably shouldn't abandon that for that. But anyway, the show itself. So I'm going to be talking spoilers, but my general overall thoughts, if that's all you want to hear, spoiler-free thoughts, is just that it is so good, and as someone who is mostly an outsider to the franchise, I'm really enjoying it. So you don't need to have experience with the games to know what is going on, and I would say Season 1 especially, there's nothing really in there that makes you feel like you're missing out on a reference or something. Season 2 is a bit more referential, but it's still, it's just the occasional moment where I go, I wonder if that was in the game. I wonder if that, well, I'm not going to say where it is, because this is a spoiler-free segment, but yeah. I would say what I think this show is perfect for is sating my curiosity about almost every aspect of Fallout lore that I've been curious about from the outside looking in. I've been curious about life within the vaults, I've been curious about the world before the bombs dropped, I've been curious about the various different factions, I've been curious about ghouls and what it's like to be a ghoul, and how their entire biology, I guess, works and stuff like that. So it's been so gratifying watching through the show so far with that interest in mind. But I am now going to talk spoilers, and I never really intended to make a video about this, and I've been watching it fairly slowly over the course of a month or two, so Season 1 is fairly far away in my mind at this point, so it's probably going to be pretty Season 2 focused. But what I will say, and full spoilers activate, what I will say is the finale of Season 1 is, I don't know how to put it, visually striking. It felt like, and I would say both finales have done this, it really did feel like a powerful ending, and I think especially because I mentioned the visuals, standing in that war-torn building, looking out at this kind of apocalyptic, environment at dusk as two factions collide and begin warring and stuff, it just felt so cinematic. And that feels rote to say. I don't know how else to say it. It feels like a giant moment that you would build up to over the course of a 40-hour long RPG. Absolute cinema. There you go. Do you get what I'm saying now? But yeah, to kind of talk about where the show's at the minute, having finished Season 2, I've really enjoyed... So we've got three main characters, right? We've got Lucy, the Vault Dweller, we've got the Ghoul, and we've got Maximus, who starts out as a kind of cadet within the Brotherhood of Steel. And obviously, we're not at the end of a show, their character arcs aren't done, but their character arcs so far have been really, really satisfying to watch, and I'll mostly be talking about these three characters. So, first of all, Maximus. I think he really shines at the end of season 2 because his character arc is very much someone who starts off as kind of like this cadet who's been rescued from like this disaster, who's seen his entire world kind of, die, and he's trying to find meaning and new family within the Brotherhood of Steel. But as he's learning about what a knight should be, what a hero should be, he's also learning about how flawed the ideals of the Brotherhood of Steel are. Like, we see one of the heads of the Order is about to massacre a bunch of kids because they're ghouls, and you see it's very much steeped in like they see ghouls as abominations and stuff, whereas Maximus's time in the wasteland, limited as it has been, has taught him otherwise. I think it probably helps seeing his friend Thaddeus transformed into... We're supposed to think he's a ghoul. I'm starting to have my suspicions that that's not the case, by the way. Let's get into that real quick, because at one point he's talking to the ghoul. He's like, you, me, we're a couple of ghouls. And the ghoul doesn't really say much. And he's like, do you know what this thing's about? And he opens like his shoulder and there's like a mouth. And the ghoul kind of looks at it, and then he looks at Thaddeus like he's something really dangerous, like he's a walking time bomb. And then we have that moment, just before the giant confrontation with all of the Deathclaws where his arm falls off randomly. And he's like, that happens, right? That happens all the time to ghouls. And you see the ghoul kind of look at him like, no, it doesn't. And when you think about it, we haven't really seen Thaddeus like drink any of the fluid that the ghoul drinks or anything like that. So I think there might be something more going on with him, and I have no idea what that could be. Maybe people more invested in Fallout lore have an idea, but I don't. Like, what's the process of becoming a super mutant? Is he going to become a super mutant instead of a ghoul? I don't think that's it, but that's all I can really think of as an alternative, because we did see that super mutant save the ghoul. I've just remembered that. Anyway, we're not talking about intricate plot lines here, we're talking about character arcs. We're still talking about Maximus, and what I really like about his character arc is at the end of season 2, we really see him become an actual, true, proper hero and knight, right? Like, he's faced these corrupted ideals of what a knight should be, and seeing ghouls as abominations to put down and stuff like that, and bringing order to the wasteland through kind of a fascist regime, and he's kind of overcome those ideals. And we've seen him wrestle with cowardice and the basic wasteland thing of like surviving by any means necessary and stuff like that. And we get to a point where we see him don the New Californian Republic armor, power armor, which is very much like, they're built up as the actual good guys and the actual heroes, despite having problematic, parts to them and stuff like that. And we see them marching towards the hotel in the Vegas Strip, and we see like, or is it a casino or something? And we see everyone's like cheering because they're like, wow, the New Californian Republic's back. Yeah, they're going to save us from these Deathclaws. But we know that actually he's just there to distract the Deathclaws while the ghoul gets into the building and out again, right? And even that in itself, willingness to do that is kind of heroism, because he's doing it so that he can, help Lucy and get this thing to Lucy. That's the deal they struck. At the same time, though, it's not heroism in like a traditional sense of I'm going to kill the monsters and protect the people of the town. But when the true heroism does arise is when he gets punched through the fence enclosing the Deathclaws, and the Deathclaws are free, and suddenly everyone who lives in New Vegas is very fucked. they're screwed. And we see that he realizes this is his fault and he has to put this right, and he puts everything on the line to save these people and take down these Deathclaws and stuff. And first of all, like, you've got the heroism of him even attempting to do that, but then you've also got the heroism of his ability to do that and his just fighting prowess. And it was so cool to see both, like, the fighting scene by itself in a vacuum is cool, but the fact that we arrived there after this 2-season long so far character arc of what a knight should be and true heroism and stuff is legitimately so cool. And we see the flashbacks of, him as a kid looking up to a knight in power armor, and, how he felt about that and how he wanted to be that. And he sees a kid as he's walking into town in his power armor, and he's like, oh, I'm here, like, I'm that guy now. So I think that is what motivated him to do that and protect those people. And it was such a full circle moment, and it was really satisfying to see. I'm curious to see what his character arc is going forwards. As for Lucy, she has maybe one of the most important parts of the show as being like the main antagonist's daughter, and you know, in Fallout games, you very often have this whole, like, I have to go find the Overseer, who's also my dad. That's a Fallout 3 thing, right? But then in Fallout 4, you're looking for your son. So it always feels like you've left the vault and you're leaving to go and find someone. And Lucy's story starts out as kind of that traditional Fallout story. And we see her encounter the ghoul, who's very much the antithesis of everything that she is. And she's all about kindness and, you know, all these values she's been raised to believe in the vault, which is a very protected environment. And the ghoul's there to remind her that you're on the surface now, and it's cruel up here, and it's, you know, every man for themselves. It's dog eat dog. It's survival at all costs. And we see her character transform from like this naive, optimistic person into a darker, more world learned person. But at the same time, we see her trying to hold on to who she is and her values, and see if she can marry that to the realism of being in this wasteland. And I feel like, as opposed to Max from earlier, her character arc is still very much in the middle of, like, she's still dealing with that. Like, she also had to come to terms with the fact that her father is this monster, and she wants to bring him to justice, but how's she going to do that? And is she going to be swayed by his view of the world because she still loves him as her father and all of this stuff? And I think it's been really interesting watching her journey so far, and watching her try to heal from, you know, dealing with her father, and what she's going to do next is going to be really interesting in season 3, I think. But then we come to my favourite character, and probably everyone's favourite character, and that's the Ghoul, because the Ghoul used to be Cooper Howard, and Cooper Howard is someone that we see the lens of the pre-nuclear bombs dropping world, and that is so fascinating to me. The fact that we get to see this man as he was and the man that he becomes, and the stark contrast between those two people, but at the same time, you know, it's not an Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader situation where it's really difficult to see them as the same person. You can still see that he is fundamentally the same person. It's just that as the Ghoul, and after 200 years of traveling the wasteland and what that does to a person, I feel like you can see he's definitely his not necessarily his worst elements, but like his harsher instincts have risen to the surface and become the core of who he is. And so on the one hand, you have this story of Cooper Howard in the past as this actor who's just trying to get along in this world that is obsessed with the apocalypse and is absolutely certain that it's going to happen, and is, you know, trying to profit from it in all these horrible, disgusting ways. And by the way, that's another thing that this show does really well, is show the absolute extreme end state of capitalism of what if you could profit by causing the apocalypse. Well, then they would cause the apocalypse. But dealing with, you know, the fact that his wife is wrapped up in all of that stuff, and then, like, you know, all of these factions are trying to vie for his, like, loyalty, I suppose, and getting him to do these things. And you get the impression of this person who very much just wants to get on with life and not worry about politics and stuff, have to eventually come to terms with the fact that he is an important person with a role to play, and he's going to have to try and do the best that he can for this world, and ultimately ends up making the drastically wrong choice. But it's inevitable that he would do so based on the information he'd been given. And then what I love is we see the Ghoul is very much a response to that. You know, he's this survivor who has been transformed into, you know, this person who people mark as an abomination, and he's a bounty hunter as well, right? I think he is anyway. And he's kind of become this dark reflection of the kind of characters he used to portray in movies. And I love that the two parts of his story are told side by side. They're told like just two different character perspectives, because in so many ways, Cooper Howard and the Ghoul are two separate characters. But I love that as we're seeing the Ghoul, you know, traverse the wasteland, and he's trying to find his family and stuff. We don't know that at the start, and we're learning what his motivations are and how he got where he is as the show unfolds, as we're watching him do the things. And that's such a compelling way to tell the story. And I've got to say, Walton Goggins, man. You know how I said I wasn't gonna make a video about this? I didn't really consider, oh, I should watch Fallout and make a video about it. one of the main reasons I am is because I need to talk about this moment right at the end of season 2. There's a moment when the ghoul reaches these cryopods where his wife and daughter are supposedly being held. And despite the fact that he's been searching for his family all the way up until now, he's had this hard exterior, he's been crass, he speaks in a different way, obviously he looks very different, he's just, as I said, almost a separate character to Cooper Howard. But we get to this point where he's finally here, and he's at the end of his journey, or so he thinks, and House asks him if he wants to open the pods. And as he gives the command to open the pods, suddenly Walton Goggins does something with his face, and suddenly you see Cooper Howard beneath everything, right? Suddenly I'm not looking at the ghoul, I'm looking at Cooper Howard. It's exceptional. It blew my goddamn mind. Like, I literally gasped. He didn't say anything in any crazy melodramatic way. He didn't do anything. It's just his face. And it's just, that's like probably going to be a moment of acting that stands out to me for the rest of my life, of just a remarkable use of facial expression, which is, I guess it's built up over the course of 2 seasons of playing these 2 different versions of the same character and then dropping one version into another, and it's just so effective. And if you didn't notice it, or if I went back and looked at it now expecting it, maybe it wouldn't have the same effect on me. But it was just the fact that I wasn't thinking necessarily about Cooper Howard as the ghoul there, but then I was, because of his facial expression shifting. So good, absolute cinema. And yeah, I think that's all I've got to say, really. I'm not going to go into every intricate plot detail and every single character and all that stuff, but this is just to say I'm really enjoying Fallout Season 1 and 2 so far, and I'm very much looking forward to Fallout Season 3 in the future, and I think I will probably be playing a whole lot more of Fallout games in the future too. I've been enjoying playing Fallout 76 with a friend. If you've been scoffing at that, by the way, you might not have heard that Fallout 76 is actually a decent game nowadays. I didn't play it back when it wasn't. But I do want to give Fallout 4 another go. The only reason I'm holding back on it really is just because I would kind of like it on the Switch, but I'm not going to pay 54 quid for it. I'm going to wait for it to go on deep discount someday, or I might just play my Steam copy. And then I still think the Fallout 3 and New Vegas remaster might be real, based on an interview Todd Howard gave to Kinda Funny, where he never said that it wasn't happening, he just said that he still likes the idea of shadow drops, and knowingly looked at the camera. So yeah, that's probably happening. And if I'm going to play those games, and I know everyone's going to tell me to play New Vegas, I haven't played New Vegas. I hear that game crashes a lot on modern systems, so I would probably like to play some kind of re-release of it if it's done right. So yeah, that's all from me. That's the story of how I fall in love with Fallout. I know activity on this channel has been a little bare lately. Thank you for bearing with me on that front. And we hit 100 subscribers recently as well. I am very thankful for that. Thank you everyone who tunes in and listens to me ramble about stories of all kinds. I will inevitably eventually have more content to share with you in the future, and I will catch you then.